Hey guys, what is going on? Carter here. Got another video for you. This is on the Formax redo, Formax Part 2, Formax 2.0, whatever you want to call it. So a little history on my Formax stuff. I was one of the early guys to get the Formax USA version when it first came out. It had a few issues, a few fit and finish issues. I think the scales didn't line up all that well. It had some bad stone washing on it. Not a big deal, but the main thing was the blade was all chipped right from the factory. So I sent that back in super quick. They sent me out another one. That one was perfect. Kind of held on to it, didn't do anything with it. Carried it maybe once because it was so large and so heavy, and I, kind of fell out of knives for a little bit. So it sat in my closet. Really loved it, but wasn't doing anything with it. I kept thinking I should sell it, but then I didn't. But eventually I decided to sell it, and I did, got rid of it. Shortly after, I saw this new gray edition, and I decided I had to pick one up. Not right then, but I knew I had to get one because this gray is out of sight. I mean, seriously, I love this gray way more than the Coyote Tan or Tan, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if everyone feels that way, but to me, the Stonewash with this kind of cool gray is really, really nice. So I eventually bit the bullet here recently and picked another one of these up. Main purpose of this video isn't really a review per se on the Formax. It's kind of to cover the things that are different. If I notice anything different between my good version of the USA, I'm not going to take into account the first one. There were some QC problems, some production problems. I'm just saying the good one I received after compared to this one. I posted this on my Instagram, and some people asked what the differences were in terms of, I assume, like feel, fit, finish, function, stuff like that. So I'm just going to talk about that, and it'll go really quick. So this is now made in Italy. Before it was made completely in the US. So I believe this is US G10, US steel, CPM 20 CV, and then it's sent over to Italy, I assume, to be manufactured. I don't know for sure. Maybe the blades are still made in the USA and it's simply assembled here. I don't know. I don't know the full details of what exactly takes place where, but this is being made in Italy. I'm not sure by whom. The consensus is it's probably Lion Steel, but it could be some of the other manufacturers as well. There's nothing in here that would indicate Lion Steel per se, so there's nothing I can point at in terms of the manufacturing or the milling or anything like that that would say Lion Steel. The biggest difference, which I already mentioned, is the awesome gray scales. Let's get a close-up there. These are blasted gray scales, just like the tan scales. They are lightly contoured, which I like. I don't like overly contoured G10. This is kind of perfect for me. Lightly contoured gives it that kind of nice custom feel to it without being too, I don't know, bulbous. I don't really like it when handles are round, super round. I like them flat, but I also like a little contour. The fit and finish on here is really good. It's on par with the second USA one that I received. Without being able to compare it directly side by side, going off of memory, everything seems on par with that. The lockup, the action. I know some people mentioned that the USA ones would stick a little bit more. I can't say that I recall that being the case. I mean, the stick on this is what I would expect. It's got good tension on the lock bar. Lockup is perfect. You can see the scales are pretty flush. The only thing I would kind of nitpick maybe is right here. You can see a slight bit of gap right there where they went a little overboard with the spacing. So these pins right here are stepped. So they step down to go through the titanium and the G10 on both sides. Same with this stop pin right here. So the wider part in the middle is what determines the amount of available space right here. For a lockback knife, you need a little extra space. Otherwise, this would, you'd pinch the scales together and you wouldn't be able to use this rocker. It would be, crunching up against this. That's just how it is. But they did, it does have a little more space. It's not quite as precision as I would necessarily like. if you compare it to other production cold steel knives where you really don't see any sort of gap, and yet it still operates the rocker smoothly. So there's that. It's not a big deal. So far it hasn't caused any issues or anything like that, but it is something to note. The other thing that has nothing to do with the fact that it is the Italian-made version, this is just how it is, the pocket clip is a little flat for my taste, particularly right here. I've actually bent this out just a tad. Out of the factory, this lip right here barely raises off the scales, and it kind of makes it difficult to find its way in your pocket. Oftentimes you find yourself doing the two-handed pocket procedure, you know, where you're kind of pulling your pocket lip tight so that you can get it in here. I don't really like that. I also think this could be a little thicker. It's a little weak for my taste. Once again, haven't actually ran into any issues with it, but just my taste. I wish that titanium was a tad thicker. Really just more of the standard cold steel production pocket clips would be preferred. Of course, these are small nitpicky things. That would be kind of preferred, especially since this is contoured and smooth. You don't have an issue of the really grippy G10 tearing up your pockets or anything like that. So having that extra tension would not cause an issue getting it in and out of the pocket. Other knives, I could say that would not be good, like the SR1, which has a really thick and strong pocket clip spring, doesn't help you get it in and out of the pocket. But that's, you know, like I said, really minor things. Overall, this knife is really cool, and probably, you know, and I've said this in the last video, is that this is basically I mean, we'd have to define the term mid-tech, but it's basically a Demko Formax mid-tech. If you buy one of his custom Formaxes, it's essentially this, just with typically a satin ground blade. I mean, you're going to get kind of the nice grind marks on the bevel and stuff. But other than that, I mean, this is really all the materials, the titanium liners, the contoured G10 blasted scales, the triad lock. I mean, everything is basically a custom production version of the custom, and that is really cool at what I feel is a very reasonable price point for the materials you're getting, the size of this knife. Let's do a size comparison. It's huge, 4-inch blade. It's a gigantic, heavy, something like 10, 11 ounces, gigantic, heavy, hard use blade. If you're talking throw anything at it, this is it. You could throw anything at this knife. It's got, in my opinion, the strongest lock on any folding knife. Really thick, around 5mm, 20 CV steel, titanium liners, G10, backspacer. I mean, it is built like a beast. The only thing that maybe would make it a little bit stronger is maybe a couple more screws holding it together, because really you can't have anything up here because of the rocker lock. So you have 3 screws back here holding it together, and then the pivot. But with cold steel and their manufacturing, everything is so tightly precise put together. I did take this knife apart a couple times just for fun and just to clean it out, and you know, I like to do that kind of stuff. You have to pry it apart. I mean, I did have to take a screwdriver and literally pry this thing apart because it is fit together so tightly. All the pieces are super snug. So this thing is robust as all get out. So that's it, guys. The Italian version of the Formax from Cold Steel, still as impressive as ever. Super quality, and the grayscales, in my opinion, is a step up from the USA version. I like it a lot. All right, guys. Later.